What is happening, everybody? Today we got another video coming in here because Lore just revealed some extremely spicy cards I was not expecting. Today is Sunday the 2nd. We're just a few days away from the second set of the Shurima release, and these cards are really spicy. So I really like the variety packs that they drop, and they reveal a bunch of other random separate cards, and they did that for different regions. But today they teased a few more Targon cards that don't really fit with Malphite's package exactly. Then they tease a couple extra Shuriman cards that are also, not exactly Zillion's package. And then they tease a couple Ionian cards that we're not really sure where they're going to fit yet because we haven't seen Irelia. So let's dive in and take a look at these. Here's what we got so far. So let's go through the Ionian ones first. The first one is extremely breakable. This card can definitely have some crazy plays depending on what other cards come out. It is the Dancing Droplet. It's a 1-drop elusive, and it has a tune 1/1 unit. When it's recalled, you draw a card. So the attune is great. You get your mana back. You have an elusive unit for 1/1. You're not going to poke a ton of damage through, but it's still elusive for 1 mana, which is good. The attune's great because you're going to get spell mana every time you play it, which is kind of like it paying for itself, which is really sweet. And then when it gets recalled, you get to draw a card. When you go to play it again, you're getting a tune again, and you have the possibility to draw it again. You see the cycle there that could really be, extreme. You could play this into the Conspirator just for an easy, okay, I played this for 1, he came out, I got a tune, I play Conspirator, now I have my 2/2 elusive on turn 2, and I bounce this back to my hand, which lets me draw a card, and I got a tune 1. So you have a lot of good progress there in that type of situation. But also, there's totally ways just to make this card absolutely ridiculous, right? You have multiple of these out. You play the Solidarity Monk, and then you recall all of them. You get a bunch of draw. You can play them again cheaply for mana. You can really mess around with these. And I think they're going to be absolutely a blast. And it's definitely something Ionia has needed for a while now. It's just an interesting card, and I definitely think, Ionia needs more tricks. And the elusive tricks that they do have are still solid. But the self-recall package, like, the Monastery of Harana, which now maybe could see a little bit of play with this to a degree, depending if you can break it. At that point, you really need to make something super valuable happen later. But just even the basic recall, like I mentioned, the Conservator and then the Monk, both have the Conspirator and the Monk, both have really good synergy with this card, and it fits into the package. The fact that it has a tune is absolutely nasty. So I'm all about this card. I think it's super sweet. I'm pretty high on it. I think it's one of the better cards we've seen so far for sure. I think it's, at least in the sense of opening up a lot of possibilities for a region, I think it's one of the better cards that they've put out for that. So I'm excited for it. I can't wait to see it. The next Ionian card is down to the bottom right. It's called Shadows of the Past. A little bit less interesting, but also sort of kind of interesting. It's a 5-mana fast speed spell that essentially recalls all allies and summon a living shadow, which is Zed's 3/2 ephemeral body in its place. So you can essentially save your entire board and put down living shadow. So if you're recalling the Dancing Droplet, you can spike up to 3 damage instead of 1 and possibly trade into things much better. But you can also draw a card from that when it's the Droplet. You can also, potentially level up Zed with this. When you're attacking, if Zed's out, all he needs is the shadows or himself to strike. So if you do have that, that could give level up progression that way for Zed, which is kind of cool. But it's really just like it's a really good hand value here. Essentially, you're saving your whole board, hopefully getting some decent trades with the living shadows, and now you can just replay your whole board. Now, if you can do that efficiently without really getting set back really hard, then it's pretty solid. The problem is this card could set you back pretty far. 5 mana for this is a bit expensive. Again, we're seeing a little bit more attune in the region, so maybe it's not all that expensive. And we do see, the one thing we've seen from Irelia so far is a Blade. So a Blade's a 1/1 token. Ionia does like tokens, so if you can, have these easy tokens that are just going to get recalled, and that's fine. You can just let them get recalled, and you got your board better anyway. So there is an option for that. The problem here is that it recalls each ally. So even allies that you don't want to get recalled, they will. So you really have to be careful what your board is, because it's going to get recalled. If you have a champion that's going to level up, that gets recalled. So this card has very specific synergies that it needs to match with. And I'm not so sure that they're going to be all that great, but time will tell. It's definitely an interesting card. Reminds me a lot of the card that gives the whole field Shadow Flare. It's called everybody in the battle gets ephemeral. Kind of like a blowout card like that, where it's just this big move. that can really, be a huge swing, or it could kind of be a dead card. But it very synergistic with certain things, very specific things, and it could end up being something that sees some play. It's very interesting. We're going to go to Targon next. The Solari Sunhark is going to see a ton of play. This card's incredible. It's a 2-drop, 2/3, just a common card from Targon. It has Daybreak, so we're getting a little bit more Leona love and Daybreak love, which I've absolutely am hyped about because I love the Daybreak package. A lot of people say it's a little bit boring. A lot of people have that vibe to it. I personally absolutely love Leona. Playing with that entire package is so much fun for me. And the Sunhawk's bonkers. So 2/3, but Daybreak, stun the strongest enemy. This is incredible. So now it's another 2-drop. So now just instead of having just this Shield Bearer, which is already an amazing 2-drop, it has the Solari Sunhawk, which is incredible. I wrote previously in an article, which I'll link below, breaking down all of the Malphite reveals. But in that, I included the Blue Sentinel. And I said the Blue Sentinel is interesting because realistically, a lot of the 2-drops in Targon are kind of specific to what they want to do. You have the Shield Bearer, who can kind of see play anywhere, but mainly in Daybreak decks. The Goat is the one that kind of gets everywhere. Then you have a Nightfall 2-drop and so on. But this thing, even though it's just Daybreak, it can be seen a lot more than just Daybreak. Stunning the strongest enemy is extremely valuable. This making on 2. It's pretty good. You get stunned, you get an attack. But later in the game, it's incredible. If they're strongest, if they play a unit, you can 2 mana get that unit stunned if it's your first action and get a chump blocker on board. It can slow down turns massively. So this fits straight into like a Leona Asol deck, like beautifully, but also can fit outside of Daybreak for sure. It's an incredible, incredible card. It also goes straight into Noxus decks because this is a really, really good Ravenous Flock proc. So, normally you use the Arachnoid Sentry to stun a target unit. Well, this can stun the strongest enemy. And then for 1 mana, deal 4 to that, right? If this is turn 3, 4, when they're playing their key champions, if you play this, you get the stun off on their key champion, Ravenous Flock for 4 damage, 3 mana for a removal, and you get a 2/3 out of it. Incredible. I know you can't target exactly what you want like you could with the Arachnoid Sentry, but still, the strongest enemy, most of the time, or a decent amount of time, it's going to be what you want to target anyway. So Sunhawk, to me, is absolutely incredible. I'm very, very excited about this card. Probably my favorite card out of this lot. Maybe second favorite, but most likely my favorite. They also revealed one more landmark here, and it's the Eye of the Ra-Horak, and it's a 5-cost landmark from Targon. It has countdown 1. You stun 2 weakest enemies, so the 2 weakest enemies. But it has Daybreak. So you have a Daybreak landmark now, which is super cool. And this Daybreak summons a copy of this landmark, but with countdown 2. The key thing there is that it summons a copy of a 5-mana landmark. So if you play this for 5 and it's Daybreak, you now have 10 mana summoned in landmarks, which is 10 out of 12 for leveling up Malphite. That's almost an instant level for Malphite. If you've had 2 mana from the Blue Sentinel, from any of the other 2-drop landmarks, from the Rockhopper, Malphite is considered leveled as soon as he comes out into play, because he can level while he's in the deck. So this card, while it's pretty cool for Leona decks and Daybreak decks, because it does it's going to stun the 2 weakest enemies the next turn, which is defensive or offensive in a lot of good ways, stops chump blockers or just stops some more attackers. And obviously, the countdown 2 will make it both offensive and defensive. It'll take two spots on your board, but it'll get your next turn set and the turn after that, which is pretty cool. The option to give 10 level up progress to Malphite is massive. This now lets Malphite really exist in any region combination you want. He's not just locked to Targon Shurima like it may have seemed originally, because of all of the amazing landmarks and cheap landmarks that Shurima has, like Preservarium, the Rockhopper, Unraveling Sands, all that. Now, this really lets you kind of play him anywhere, right? You can use Blue Sentinel, this, and the Targon the Targon's Peak thing, where not the 5-cost one, but the 2-cost where it gives you Celestials. You can use that, and that's enough to level up Malphite, and you can play any other region you want with him. So the Yasuo Dream lives on here with Malphite, but on top of that, both of these cards really help the Leona Yasuo deck as well. The official lore account, even on Twitter, is saying dust off your Yasuo deck, so there's obviously good synergy here. Both these Daybreak cards stun. Leona and Yasuo has already been a deck that's been pretty good. So I'm not 100% sold that Yasuo is going to be incredible now with this. I still think he is going to be solid. I mean, I've played a little bit of Leona Asol as well, or Leona Yasuo as well, and it's fun. Not sure it's going to be the best deck here. I think both these cards really help. Really, the Sunhawk helps everywhere, and the Eye of Harak really just helps obviously it can be seen in, as a 2x in like any Daybreak deck, but it really helps Malphite decks incredibly. So both these cards are awesome, but Sunhawk is probably my favorite out of the lot. But next to that, second favorite, or maybe even favorite, is the Merciless Hunter. This thing's bonkers for a common. Again, it's another common, so it's really solid, but it is a 3-drop 4/3 with Fearsome. So right there you have Callista stats, right? We've seen how good Callista is. Even if she doesn't level up, she's just a 4/3 who's going to hammer home some damage with 4 attack. Fearsome getting through a lot of blockers. This thing also has play, grant an enemy vulnerable. So the same effect that the Sand Spinner has without the -1 attack on turn 4. This thing can now grant an enemy vulnerable, and either 2 things you can do with this. And it's grant, so it's permanent, which is great. You can either, on turn 3 or later, you can grant a strong ally vulnerable, pull it to the side with something weak, and now you can get your 4 damage with Fearsome through. Or you can just use this as a battering ram, play it, grant whatever, Yasuo, whatever champion they have that has 4 health, or whatever you need to kill that has 4 health, and just ram this 3 cost into that. Kind of works as like a direct removal to a degree for Shurima, which is super great. And they have a lot of vulnerable. We've already seen it be pretty good. But the like mid-rangey decks that Renekton, Sejuani, like those type of decks that Shurima has, this is exactly what that deck needs. What Noxus has had a lot of is really good 3-drops. You can play the 5/4 that can't block is pretty good, but the Iron Ballista is really good. The 4/3 with Overwhelm. This is very similar to that. It's a Fearsome, which isn't Overwhelm, but it's still solid, and it has the ability to grant an enemy vulnerable. This card is absolutely bonkers. I think this is maybe the best card from this reveal. But I do think the Sunhawk is my favorite, if that makes sense. The Sunhawk just has really cool synergy that I've always been akin to. But Merciless Hunter is absolutely incredible. I think this is the best card from the reveal. The last card we got is one more Shuriman card, which is really good. It's a Profiteer, and it's a 4-drop 5/3, so decent stats. And when I'm summoned, create a Lucky Find. So the Lucky Find, obviously, is the focus speed that essentially gives you, and it's fleeting as well, but you get a 1 of 3 random buffs. There's like 8 or 9 buffs that it can pick from, including keywords or just stat buffs, and we haven't seen a whole lot of Lucky Finds. And the ways we have, there's the Landmark, the Inner Sanctum that lets you get a couple, and then there's also the card that just costs 2 that lets you get some, lets you get 1. Those haven't been all that great to me yet, but this card's pretty good. You instantly just on curve as a 4-drop with a 5/3, which helps your reputation. And also is just a decent body for trading, gives you automatically a Lucky Find. One of the problems is that it is fleeting, the Lucky Find that you get, so you do have to use it this turn. You can't save it for turn 4 or turn 5 or 6 when you're playing like your Sivir a turn later and you want to give her the buff. You do have to use it instantaneously, but just playing like the Profiteer and then instantly getting like Challenger on it or something with the Lucky Find, or even just giving your 3-drop LeBlanc something like a +2 health or +1/+1, something like that, for that type of deck is super good. I think Profiteer is going to see a lot of play. It's going to compete with like Sand Spinner in that deck in that slot, but it really does help the reputation package in general. It's a 5-attack unit, gives you the Lucky Find, which can give you the Overwhelm or the Challenger that you're really looking for, and it's just an overall really good card. So I think all of these cards are great. If I had to rank them, I would say Merciless Hunter is the best, Sunhawk's the second best, and then Profiteer is probably the third, with the exception that the Dancing Droplet, depending on what Irelia does and what other recall synergy we get down the road, could be the one that takes off and becomes the most problematic in the long run. For now, the 3 I said are my list, and that is the video, guys. Thank you for stopping by. Thanks for checking out the channel. I will link an article. I fully broke down all of the Malphite review, all the Malphite spoilers in an article form, and even theory crafted a deck with Malphite and Zilean, which I think is going to be an extremely fun pairing. So if you're interested in checking that out, the link will be below. And stay tuned. This upcoming week, we have a returning guest to the podcast. We have Riot G Major. He's actually the guy that designed all these cards. He designed all of this Shuriman set, 1, 2, and 3 for this whole release. So we're having him back on the cast. We've had him on once, having him back on to talk about all of these sweet cards and talk about how he designed Zilean, Irelia, Malphite, and all the cards in between. So thanks for checking out the video, and stay tuned for more. Thanks.